Oh, I have all these fabrics that need to be turned into textiles, but I don't have enough money to hire people. What should I do? I have an idea. So, what is child labor? Child labor is the exploitation of children through forms of work, in which children aren't given proper pay and are forced to work long hours. The use of child labor can be dated all the way back to the colonial period, but had much more widespread use during the 19th century, during which the US was going through many industrial advancements. During this time, many children were employed in a variety of different professions, including coal mining, textile factories, and manufacturing. However, most children were forced to work long hours due to being paid lower wages. This led to many children having less time to go to school and do, normal kid stuff. Due to this, many New England states passed laws to try to control child labor. In 1836, Massachusetts passed a law requiring working children under 15 to attend school at least 3 months per year. 6 years after this, Massachusetts would pass another law regulating the amount of hours children could work. Around the start of the 20th century, many reformers started to push for reforms around child labor laws. Many reformers, including Florence Kelley, Jane Addams, and Lewis Hine, started raising awareness about child laborers and advocated for laws to protect children. The efforts by these reformists eventually led to the formation of organizations, one of which was the National Child Labor Committee. The National Child Labor Committee, or the NCLC, conducted extensive investigations into the working conditions of child laborers, launched public awareness campaigns, and advocated for the federal legislation to protect children. Through the advocacy of child labor reformers and the NCLC, U.S. Congress passed the Keating-Owen Child Labor Act in 1916. The law prohibited the transportation of goods produced by child labor to try to economically cripple child laborers. However, this act wouldn't stay around for long, as in 1918, a case of Hammer v. Dagenhart would reach the Supreme Court arguing the constitutionality of the act. Dagenhart would argue that the federal government did not have the authority to regulate child labor under the Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution. In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court would rule that the Keating-Owens Act was unconstitutional, as Congress did not have the authority to regulate labor conditions within individual states. Following this court case, many states would implement their own child labor laws to address child labor practices. It wouldn't be until 2 decades later when President Roosevelt would sign the Fair Labor Standards Act, or the FLSA, in 1938. The FLSA was a federal law that intended on protecting workers' rights by setting a federal minimum wage and creating an overtime pay system. In addition to this, the FLSA would also establish a minimum age requirement, restrict hazardous occupations, and limited the hours children were allowed to work. Following the FLSA, many different acts and reformers would help contribute to the ongoing fight to protect child workers. This would lead us to 1999, when President Bill Clinton signed the Child Labor Deterrence Act, an act that aimed to prohibit goods made from labor from forced or indentured children into the US. Today, the fight against child labor remains strong, with many groups from around the world fighting and advocating for child labor protections. However, many countries still seem to turn a blind eye to this issue. Whatever the case may be, it's always important to remember that children are children. Let them spend their youth having fun before they have to deal with taxes and life crises.